name is Stan the Man, and you have tuned into Real Talk here on the Dream Nation Network. My name is Stan the Man, and this is Real Talk. Today, we're going to talk about the history of policing in the United States of America. We're going to find out where it began, and we're going to chronicle where it's going. Because I feel like it's important to know just how it got started, um, and why is it so bad when it comes to the African American community. You know, that's what we're going to talk about today. 18th and 19th century urban centers. The history of policing in America is often told through discussions of 18th and 19th century urban centers, primarily in the northern regions of our nation. Big city American policing in the northern was influenced by the model of policing established in London uh, through the Metropolitan Policing Act of 1829. Policing established in London, no, and the philosophies of Sir Robert Peel. So, Sir Robert Peel is the guy basically responsible for all of the policing in the United States. While this may be true of the North, American policing developed differently in the frontier and southern regions of the nation, and that is very, 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 very true. American policing developed very differently in the frontier and southern regions of the nation. Each of these regions differed in how they were socially organized, which powers groups controlled or strongly influenced social functions, and in their real and perceived social problems. Robert H. Langworthy and Lawrence F. Travis of 1999 note that policing must be understood through a balance of force. And this starts with organizing that law enforcement. But that's all they got. Well, let's delve deeper into it. What did early American policing stem from? There are two historical narratives about the origins of American law enforcement. Policing in southern slaveholding states and had roots in slave patrol squadrons. Now, I guess we've all heard about that, those slave patrols, and how they would go out and capture runaway slaves and be brutal to them so they won't do it again. It was a very, very brutal situation back then. Um, these squadrons were made up of white volunteers empowered to use vigilante tactics to enforce laws related to slavery. What is the history of policing in the United States? Let's find out. The first form of policing in the United States were slave patrols, and Indian constables. Indian constables. In the early 1700s, New England and Midwestern regions appointed Indian constables to police Native Americans. That makes sense, because they spoke the language. So um, they got them to police their own people, whom they viewed as primitive and untamed. You know, there was nothing primitive about those people. They just lived a different kind of way. Slave patrols were created in the South to enslave and control black people. So there you go with that slave patrol again, to control black people. What did American policing begin? When did American policing begin? The first full-time police department was created in 1838 in Boston. According to professor of justice studies Gary Potter, New York City followed in 1845, and by the 1880s, just about every major city in the country had a police department. So the first police department was in 1838 in Boston, Massachusetts. How did policing begin? The era of modern policing began during the late 1700s and early 1800s, when the explosive population driven by the Industrial Revolution led to an equally explosive growth in crime and civil unrest. Policing in colonial America was carried out by a combination of citizen volunteers, along with elected elected sheriffs and local militias. There you go. 1838 was when the first police department began, and you know, from 1838 to 2023, I wonder how many black people have been killed by police officers and never ever brought to justice. Because I can imagine that most people that was killed unjustly. You know, those are my thoughts. And yes, those are my thoughts. So the origins of modern day policing, tough on crime law have put an unprecedented number of nonviolent offenders behind bars, and our neighborhoods secure feel with no more secure. This system has deep roots in slavery. Sure do. Slave patrols. The origins of modern day policing can be traced back to the slave patrol. The earliest form of slave patrol was created in the Carolinas in the early 1700s with one mission: to establish a system of terror and squash slave uprisings with the capacity to pursue, apprehend, and return runaway slaves to their owners. That's something I can never grasp. How can one person own another person? That to me that is so crazy. How can one person own another person? I own you. That's crazy. Tactics included the use of excessive force to control and produce desired slave behavior. And we know all too well what excessive force can do. It can make you submit to their will. I, Patroller's name, do swear that I will, as searcher for guns, swords, and other weapons among the slaves in my district, faithfully and as privately as I can. Discharge the trust reposed in me as the law directs, to the best of my power. So help me God. So that was the oath that they took. The slave patrollers. I wonder, how different the oath is today. Slave patrols continued until the end of the Civil War and the passage of the 13th Amendment. Following the Civil War, during Reconstruction, slave patrols were replaced by militia-style groups who were empowered to control and deny access to equal rights to free slaves. I mean, they did everything they could to keep us down. They relentlessly and systematically enforced black codes, strict codes, and state laws that regulated and restricted access to labor, wages, voting rights, and general freedom for formerly enslaved people. Man, this is crazy. How they treated us. Why did they bring us here to these United States? You know, my name is Stan the Man. This has been Real Talk. Join me next week as we discuss another topic of importance. Have a good week, everybody.